Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fair National Roadshow series that now is hosted in Finland. And my apologies, because as I started talking, someone is drilling in the background. So I really hope that this is not too disturbing. My name is Sara Garavelli. I work at CSC at the Center for Science in Finland, but I'm also one of the members of the EOSC Association Board of Directors. I'm really happy to see so many of you today joining us. So today we will really go deeply into the European Open Science Cloud, and we will try to discuss its impact at national level. The program is mainly organized in two parts. So first, the participants will have an overview of what EOSC is all about, what are the latest developments, and also we will hear an interesting perspective from a university. And then the second part, we will focus more on national services for research and the important role of international collaboration. Maybe I will briefly share my screen to have a look at the agenda. So as I was mentioning before, we have mainly, let's say, two parts. Part one is the impacts of EOSC at national level, and part two, services for the implementation of the EOSC vision. We will also take some breaks during the meeting so that we can relax a bit. All the material that will be presented today will be available after the workshop, presentations, but also the recording of the events. If you have questions for our speakers, you are invited to use the Q&A function of Zoom. So post your questions there. And then if we have time and you want to pose your questions lively, we can also take some questions right after their presentation. Let's say that as a practice, we will have first the speaker's presentation, and then we will take a couple of questions. But now I would like to start introducing Sara Pittonet-Gajarin from Trust IT Services. She's also the Fair Impact Outreach Manager, and Fair Impact was, let's say, the main organizer of this event. So thank you very much for organizing this. Sara, the floor is yours, so you can introduce also yourself.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us so early in a Friday morning. I hope you can properly see my screen. So my name is Sara Pittonet-Gajarin. I'm a senior project manager and shareholder at Trust IT Services. I have the real pleasure to be the Fair Impact Outreach Manager. And today I also pass you the greetings and welcomes from the coordinators of the Fair Impact Project, Ingrid Dillo and Vasu Kalasi, who cannot be with us today. As Sarah mentioned, Fair Impact is the facilitator of this series of roadshows that have the objective to engage as much as we can stakeholders from research academia, but not only, in different regions in Europe to really deliver widely the messages that that we hopefully will manage to pass to you as well today. So the roadshow series is organized under the umbrella of the Fair Impact Project, which started in June 2022. So we are almost entering our third year. So we are, let's say, entering the concluding final phase of the project. The project was funded by the European Commission Horizon Europe program under a call that aimed at enabling and boosting open science practices and interoperability in the research area. You'll learn, about EOSC, about FAIR today. We presume you're already familiar with that. If not, I'm sure you will get to. The Fair Impact project is brought to you by a consortium of 28 partners from very different countries in Europe, and is led and coordinated by DANS in the Netherlands. What's the objective? Fair Impact aims at realizing a fair EOSC, so a European open science area, to support the implementation of fair enabling practices across scientific communities and research outputs at a European, national, and institutional level. So we have been doing so, and we will keep on doing so for a year on, with a different series of actions and mechanisms. So a series of coordination and support mechanisms to engage, facilitate collaboration among different institutes, to identify, we're identifying fair enabling components, so tools, methodologies, practices that can facilitate the adoption of fair practices by researchers and by their institutes. We're also supporting them in doing this, and we'll see later on how. And then we are delivering a series of materials that we hope will guide and will remain as a legacy for defining how to implement the fair practices and represent a continued long-term support for researchers around Europe. This is the work plan of the project, which is organized around work packages. And this allows you to already see what are the key areas where fair impact is active. So we are working on persistent identifiers, metadata and ontologies, metrics, certification and guidelines, and interoperability. And you will see later on how this matches the overall high-level objectives that EOSC is also trying to implement when dealing with fair practices in Europe. And then there are a couple of cross-lateral work packages, one on engagement and adoption that is driving the support program of fair impact, and one on dissemination and exploitation that, for instance, is welcoming you today with this series of events. So as I mentioned, and as Sarah mentioned, fair impact is built under the umbrella of EOSC and has the aim of support EOSC practices, open science practices in Europe, in the action areas that you've seen before, that matches the relevant action areas of the strategic research and innovation agenda of EOSC. So again, persistent identifiers, metadata and ontologies, metrics assessment and certification of fair objects and fair practices, and a huge contribution to interoperability at a broad level. We are, of course, working very closely with the EOSC community widely and with the EOSC governance, the association. And for instance, you can find here two responses to documents that have been produced by the EOSC task forces in this case, it's what the task force on semantic interoperability and on fair assessment. So we are trying to contribute actively by bringing our vision and the vision of the stakeholder researchers we work with to improve these policies. In addition, we are, of course, visible at many EOSC events because that's the place where we can meet the relevant stakeholders. We are contributing to the EOSC roadmap that you might know is trying to collect in one place, which is this macro roadmap, many different outputs that can be useful for all of you in implementing open science and fair practices. We are responding to papers as we've seen, and we also have a policy brief that summarizes the key actions of fair impact. By implementing our work plan, we rely on use cases. And so for each of the main areas where we work in, so again, persistent identifiers, metrics, semantic artifacts and ontologies, and interoperability, we have been coupling with institutes that are testing the approaches, tools, methodologies in real life scientific scenarios. So we have use cases on social science and humanities, on photon and neutron science, life science, and agri-food, exactly to bring the expertise from those domains and from those institutes into the work of fair impact, and then going back and translating the practices and methodologies that were implemented into these domains and work with the communities there to get inputs back. We are producing a series of use case fact sheets and documents. You can find them all on the main Fair Impact website, as well as on Zenodo. Then we've mentioned that Fair Impact is supporting researchers in adopting the fair practices. This is done via a support program, which is organized with two routes, main routes. So route one is supporting, is providing guidance and one-to-one support to different stakeholders. So we had launched a series of open calls, and actually there is one currently open with deadline 14th of June, dedicated to repositories and data service providers to support them in their day-to-day work of implementing fair practices at the repository level. If you missed that, there was an introducing webinar on the 8th of May, so you can find the recordings of it, but there will also be a virtual clinic on the 5th of June, open to anybody interested in getting this one-to-one support. A second type of support is given by cascading grants, so via funds, to enable testing specific tools and methods. We had as well a series of calls open already about this, but there is a new and final one that is going to be open on the 30th of September this year, so stay tuned. There is also an expression of interest form that you can fill online to get more information about them. So for those who applied to the Fair Impact support activities, the support program is ongoing. And for instance, this is one of the upcoming fair implementation workshops dedicated to provide support to different type of users. They are open to anybody. So in this case, you're all welcome to join. And the next one is on the 13th of June, dedicated to biodiversity research repositories. So we will discuss research technology-driven advancing in biodiversity research and how this can be implemented in FAIR repositories dealing with biodiversity data. Then another thing that we are doing, we are collecting different FAIR resources in a catalog. So we have implemented a FAIR implementation framework, which is a guideline, let's say, to guide you step by step on understanding the level of fairness and what you need to do to implement fairness across your research life cycle. But we are also offering you a list of tools that have been developed broadly by entities, institutes, and projects in Europe that can help you along this pathway. It's a catalog of resources that you can identify and check if they are appropriate for your need. And in this catalog, you can then directly access them where they are hosted. So there are direct links to the original resources. Again, this is available from the Fair Impact website. At the beginning, we've also mentioned that Fair Impact is supporting coordination and synchronization efforts, so bringing stakeholders together to brainstorm on the needs for fair implementation, and the synchronization force is one of these. The synchronization force is gathering representatives of research projects funded under the EOSC umbrella, but also others that are dealing with fair, with open science practices in a series of online meetings lasting a week. So we had already 2 series of the synchronization force editions. The third one is starting in September this year, the third and last one. We will ask you to join. We will ask the identified target participants to join over usually it's a 5-day activity with workshops spread across a month. Each one is dedicated to one of the areas that you've seen before, so specifically empirics, metric assessment, interoperability. And we will try to assess with you the level of implementation of fair practices in your project and initiatives to give a broad view of the state of the art today of the implementation of the fair practices. The report of the second edition is available online for you to read. And that's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for this very comprehensive overview. Lots of information, so I'm sure that people will need some time to process. So I invite everyone here. I mean, if something has captured your attention of all the things that Sarah has presented, to ask questions in the chat. And also we will hear again a recap from Sarah at the end of the webinar about the engagement opportunities. So we will go back to these developments of the fair impact. Okay, so then I suggest that we start with the first session. And the first session is going to be focusing on the European Open Science Cloud EOSC and the latest developments. And also we will deep dive into the perspective from a national player. So I will start with the presentation on behalf of the EOSC Association, where I will try to give you the most comprehensive updates of what's happening at the European level. This year is a very critical year for EOSC, and you will see that there are quite a lot of activities, and also what Sarah said before demonstrates that many things are going on. And really, I mean, activities and implementation has taken a different speed compared to the previous years. So this is really the time where the implementation will start quickly. So let me show you what I'm gonna cover here. So I thought to give you first an idea of the, let's say, two most critical activities ongoing. One is really the building of the EOSC Federation. So the time has arrived where the concrete implementation will start. And also the considerations and the activities that are ongoing at the moment to plan the future of EOSC post-2027. Why post-2027? Because as you know, the Horizon Europe program is ending. The framework program TEM will start. So a new setting for EOSC needs to be discussed at this moment. And also I will touch briefly on some engagement opportunity from the EOSC Association. And finally, just a couple of words about the EOSC Symposium. So I'm starting talking about the EOSC Federation. So what is the EOSC Federation? So as you know, the primary mission of EOSC is to increase the data sharing in Europe. In order to do that, the purpose is to build a federation of distributed systems. This federation, of course, enables collaboration to achieve common goals, and also in theory should open up resources and facilitate access to researchers in Europe. But when we talk about resources, we talk about data, we talk about services, we talk about training, for example. So it's a very wide definition of the type of resources that EOSC would like to enable to support open science and research in Europe. In order to build a federation, we need rules and policies, of course. And in the recent procurement that the European Commission conducted last year, the concept of node was introduced. So the node is the terminology that we use to indicate all the different systems that will be federated in EOSC. So rather than calling them system, we call them node. The idea is that the node will be part of the federation, and the federation will be scaled in the future. So in this picture, you see, let's say, a high-level description of how the federation looks like. And of course, the EOSC Federation doesn't operate in isolation, but it will have links also with ongoing initiatives like the data spaces or the EuroHPC. When we talk about the status of the federation, we need to distinguish two different developments. So one development is related to the development of the EOSC European node, and one development is related to the development of all the other nodes in the federation. And the concept here is that one node doesn't make a federation. So that's why when we talk the federation, we talk about all the nodes that will be part of it. The EOSC European node is only one of the many nodes. And I think that in the past, there was a sort of unclarity or misconception that this EOSC European node was a centralized node or a master node. So in the recent times, it has been clarified several times that the EOSC European node is only one of the nodes. The European Commission made an investment with a procurement action to start building this first node. And the logic is that the European EU node should be let's say, should act as a blueprint or as a reference node for all the other nodes that will become part of the federation. In this European node, fully funded by the European Commission DG Connect, there are, let's say, 3 lots, and there will be lot 1 that is really a lot that will develop services that will enable the federation. Okay, so some federating features to start building and connecting to other nodes. Lot 2 and lot 3 have a different purpose because the original thinking was, well, if we come up with an initial node that will start the federation, that is empty, only with federating functionalities, maybe the added value is not going to be that much. So we want to populate this node with some services and resources that researchers in Europe can use. And that's why there is a purpose of lot 2 and lot 3. And you can read on the slide the different type of services that they will offer. So we talk about, for example, Jupyter notebooks, containers, file transfer applications. So this is the context of the European node. And you see on the slide also the contractors that are in charge of delivering lot 1, that is Athena Research Center, and PSNC for the other 2 lots. So when we are gonna see this European node, so this is a slide from the European Commission where you can see the timeline for the development of the European node. And as you can see, the plan is that the European node will be fully in production in October 2024. So we have the EOSC Symposium by that time in Berlin. The idea is that the official launch of the European node will happen there. There is also a sort of production testing phase already going on in the summer. And maybe some of you have noticed that a couple of weeks ago, let's say the website of the new EOSC EU node has been launched. I put the URL on the slide. And at the moment, this is a static website where the Commission describes what's coming up with this EOSC EU node. The only functionality available at the moment on this portal is a catalog to discover some services. And those services are also those that in the past were onboarded in the previous EOSC portal that has been recently dismissed. So there is, this was to ensure a sort of a transition between the previous projects that prototype some of the functionality for the EU node and the new EU node that will be built through the procurement. So that's where we are with the development of the EU node, with the main deadline or milestone in October for the official launch. But then, as I said before, so one node doesn't make a federation. So what's happening with all the other nodes, okay? At the moment, there are several or a lot of activities because we need to define what is a node. So the community is working together at the moment with the governance of EOSC to discuss what are the minimum requirements for being a node. So can a university be a node or can a research center be in a node? We still don't have an answer because we still have to define also what are the duties of a node, what are the benefits for being a node. Clearly, in order to have the federation working, we need rules of participation. And now we have agreed to use the terminology enrollment of nodes. So nodes will be enrolled in the federation. And in order to enroll nodes in the federation, in addition to rules, we also need a process. And now the governance is also working to define a process. And it seems that the approach will be to enroll nodes in the federation through waves. And the idea is that why this? Because really we need also to test the initial rules of participation into the federation, and also have the possibility to adjust and improve. And clearly, very big important question, what are the financial and governance implications of the entire EOSC Federation? So how are we gonna work on all of this? There is a process in place. So the EOSC Association announced already last year that they will take the responsibility to develop a handbook of the EOSC Federation. For those of you familiar with the research infrastructure, for example, the Elixir infrastructure as a handbook. And the focus on the handbook is really to define the technical operation of the federation. Recently, the EOSC Association opened the call for contributors for drafting of this handbook. I put the link there. You need to be quick if you want to be part of it, because the deadline is the 23rd of May. The idea is that this group of volunteers that are also members of the EOSC Association, with the steering of the board of the association, will draft an handbook. And this handbook, the content of the handbook will be, let's say, revised, further input, and will be collected and validated from this new EOSC tripartite group. What is this group? So this group includes representatives of the EOSC governance, European Commission, DG RTD and DG Connect, the members of the EOSC steering board, so country representatives, the EOSC Association Board of Directors, plus ad hoc experts appointed by the three parties. So this group started working, let's say, a month ago, and we have agreed to meet every 2 or 3 weeks. And the idea is that in those meetings, this group will, let's say, support the development of the handbook, providing feedback and validating some concepts, but also tackling the aspects, the important aspects of governance and financial implications that in particular are impacting the European Commission and the countries. All this work will be essential to inform the governance, because the governance of EOSC, and when we talk about the governance, we talk about the tripartite governance, will be the final decision-making body for the future. That's the process. The other important aspects is that, as mentioned before, that we need to discuss EOSC post-2027. And why do we need to do that? So EOSC is a co-program partnership with this governance. So there is an MOU with the association and the European Commission. The existing co-program partnership ends in 2030. So we need to decide what to do next. Shall we go ahead with the same governance that we had so far, or are we going to change this? The actors engaged in the decision are the same that I mentioned before. So far, we have done some investigation in terms of governance and financial models, and we have identified the activities that needs to be sustained after 2027. Of course, the EOSC Federation has a big part in that, but also there is all the support to the activities to enable fair data and services practices and development, and all the enabling for open science policies that EOSC can support. Finally, I just give you a quick overview of some activities, engagement opportunities that are ongoing at the EOSC Association. Probably you have seen that there was a call for the EOSC Association task forces. The one that you see on the screen were the ones active last year. For this year, 4 task forces will be operational on fair matrix and digital objects, on EOSC technical and semantic interoperability, long-term data retention, and health data. So the participants or the applicants that have applied to those task forces will be confirmed by the end of the month. And there will be also in the future other opportunity to join the task forces if you miss the deadline. The second important other aspect is about the SRIA. So the SRIA is the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda of EOSC. And It's now the time to revise the overall strategic research and innovation agenda. So there is a process ongoing. There was a consultation for the members of the EOSC Association that closed on the 5th of May. And the idea now is to write the first draft of the SRIA in the summer. So be ready as a community to contribute to the SRIA in the autumn, because several other consultations will be open. In terms of engagement opportunity, I also want to flag this with you. So there is a new call that will open on the 13th of June, an infra-EOSC project, a CSA, 3 million euro. The EOSC Association is planning to coordinate a consortium. So as usual, the EOSC Association will open a call for its members. So if you're part of the association, you can pitch your engagement in this project. Last slide is just to remind you that the main annual gathering of the EOSC community is the EOSC Symposium, and this year is taking place in October in Berlin. The registration is open, and also there is opportunities to submit a call for posters. The deadline for that is the 2nd of June. So I invite all of you to check this out and join the symposium. This closes my presentation. So before taking any questions, I suggest that I pass the floor to the next speaker, that is Tommy Rosti from the University of Eastern Finland, to hear a national perspective on EOSC. And then we take questions at the end. Tommy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah. And I am Tommy Rosti, Information Specialist from the University of Eastern Finland, and I manage Open Science Coordination in the university. And our case is how UEF is a part of EOSC Association. And the first, some background, we have been observer member about 1 year now, and our university's representative in the EOSC Association is the director of the library. And when we start discussion about membership of EOSC Association, is that one project asked how they can be a part of EOSC Association, because they have one consortium where partners were recommended to be members of the EOSC Association. And we thought that organizational membership cannot be the cost of one project only, because this is not a sustainable. Oh.
Yeah, Tommy, we have lost your presentation.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I see this problem because there is issue on my laptop, but hope you can see it now.
Yes.
Yes, because this is not a sustainable business model in the long run. And EOSC Association belongs to the ERA actions, and this RIA you mentioned, Sarah, before, is one thing why we thought that we could be a member of EOSC Association. And then, as I mentioned, we are observer member, and there is the benefits. We can participate to the EOSC Association task forces. Now we don't have any membership and any members in these task forces, and this is resource planning issues, but we have to discuss this inside the university, what we can do, because this is a wide thing what we have to think about inside the university. And of course, we can contribute to the consultation of the multi-annual roadmap, as you mentioned earlier, Sarah. But we don't know, can we do this in Finland via CSC, or should we be a part of EOSC Association? We have thought this something. because we have other ways also do this discussion inside the national level in Finland. What Koara and EOSC, what they can do together, as we see Sarah's slides, there is something impact and this kind of issues, what they can do for us. We don't know yet. And we have had a large number of discussion about governance model of the EOSC Association. But I think that this is not the most important thing for universities, I guess. And of course, we can participate to the general assemblies and annual survey also, but it's still difficult to see the benefits at this stage now. What next? We have thought what we should do. This is very good question, and discussion about the governance model is not best marketing speech for the universities in Finland, I guess. But I think that our researchers needs more services, and they need to be as a part of this discussion about how they can share and use these services, what is deserved by the EOSC and EOSC Association. And then, yes, this was my contribution.
Thank you very much, Tommy. And also thank you very much for the very honest feedback and some provocative questions that actually I would like to pick them up now that we have like more or less 10 minutes, 15 minutes for some discussion. And I think that I would like to use your questions as input for discussions also with the audience. So I don't see any other questions, but if anyone wants to jump in, also just raise your hand. So the first point that I picked up is about you mentioned the consultation, right? And now, for example, the Finnish community can participate. You mentioned CSC. So I think we need to distinguish two different things, okay? So the benefit of participating as a member in the EOSC Association or observer, like the University of Eastern Finland, is that you can clearly provide your direct inputs as a university because of course, I mean, CSC is a member in the association, and clearly the idea of being a member is that a member, let's say, could provide their own view, right? And maybe not necessarily we have the same view, or maybe we have slightly different perspectives, right? So I think that joining gives you more autonomy also in providing feedback. And also, I would like to inform all the other people that we have another university joining the EOSC Association. This will be up for approval in the next General Assembly at the end of May, and it's University of Helsinki. So the University of Helsinki has sent an application for becoming a member of the association, which I think is very good, because the more we are also, the more we have an opportunity to have a Finnish voice in the EOSC Association. On the other side, indeed, we have a mechanism for national coordination when to further discuss at national level. And this is not actually CSC, but it's the EOSC Finnish Forum, right? And of course, we are engaged, but also, for example, the organizations that become part of the EOSC Association have a role in the coordinating committee. And we use this forum, and you will see that also, for example, some of you, I'm sure, are registered or subscribed to the EOSC Finnish Forum National Network. So this is really our instrument to try and have discussions at national level, try to reach some consensus, because indeed, I mean, there are certain things that should be represent an added value for Finland as a country, right? And we all need to pitch in that direction. So my suggestion is that if you are not ready or mature enough to join the EOSC Association, use the EOSC Finnish Forum to contribute to the consultation. In addition, many of the consultation of the EOSC Association are also open to the let's say, the broader public, right? Because, for example, the task forces, also non-member of the EOSC Association can submit an application as an expert. So if one of the topics that I presented before is of your interest, you can send an application to the association. So I think that there are different ways to be engaged. The second question, I think, Tommy, you were asking about EOSC and COARA, okay? And of course, I mean, these initiatives are very much linked, and the EOSC Association became a member or a supporter of the COARA initiative. Later on, we have, I think, Janne Polonen that will give us some updates there. But so what is the relation between EOSC and COARA? So clearly the primary focus of COARA initiatives is on research assessment and rewards, okay? So that's, of course, has an impact on EOSC, but we don't want to duplicate. So consider EOSC as an enabler for all the aspects related to open science / research assessment topics. And that's why, for example, there is an infra-EOSC project called GRASP OS that is in charge, for example, of exploring or piloting some services and infrastructure to support the new way of developing indicators for research assessment. So that's how EOSC contribute, and that's how, let's say, the topics more related to COARA are featured in EOSC, okay? But let's say if you want to make a distinction, COARA is really the one steering the policy part and the content part when it comes to research assessments. EOSC is more the enabler and the support. So we have some conversation, of course, and interaction. Many of the EOSC members are also part of COARA. So this is really good. Okay, so that's a bit the way of working with such initiatives. Then I think if I go to the last point, that probably is most important. So I fully understand that for universities, the discussion about the governance is not really the most interesting point, right? And I think that in the past, because there was such an uncertainty on the future of EOSC, this was really the main focus. But now that the work on the EOSC Federation is starting, I think that the focus of university should be really on the development of the EOSC Federation from two different perspectives. So from one side, I said before, can a university become a node of EOSC? I don't have the answer, but that's something that we need to all figure out whether it makes sense, what are the benefits, and so on, okay? If not becoming a node, can a university make available some services or data through the EOSC Federation? So that's the other perspective. And if yes, what is the benefit for the university in doing so? Maybe you have developed some services or practices that could be useful at European level. Maybe you can increase your collaboration with other organizations from other countries. So I think that these are the initial reflections that you need to do when you approach the EOSC Federation. So, and that's more the perspective of contributing to the EOSC Federation. And then there is the other perspective. So maybe you are a user of the EOSC Federation. At the moment, all these talks are very vague, so we are fully aware of that. But that's why I'm saying that this year we will see a difference in this, because all the developments really are in full speed at the moment. So I mentioned before, we are meeting every 2 or 3 weeks with the Commission, with the countries, with the community, to try and move this forward. In October, there will be a first concrete tool, the EOSC U-Node. And the other question is also, how do we interface or how do we approach as a community the U-Node, right? Because the U-Node is one of the several nodes. And the question there, and we have same questions at CSC, is that, well, maybe we can use some of the resources of the node, or maybe we want to make available some of our services through the U-Node. And clearly discussing this without any clear rules or policies is difficult. But that's why there is a lot of work and a lot of effort going into this at the moment. So I think that from an organizational perspective, whether you are a university, a research center, a data center, you really need to think, okay, what's in for me if I join the federation? That's the thoughts that you need to start developing. So what can I bring to the federation and why? And how can I use or leverage the federation? I think that these are going to be the most important questions that we need collectively also to answer. And that's the current work. That's why I really encourage all of you to participate as much as possible in all the engagement opportunities that there are, also those that Sarah mentioned before from Fair Impact. I mean, all of these ends up in the same, let's say, pot of brainstorming and ideas. So Tommy, I don't know if I answered a bit your question marks. And I would like to invite, if there is anyone that wants to comment or jump in, please do so. Mari.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Tommy, for the questions. I will just, I mean, this is really interesting, and I understand things are moving forward really quickly. An added layer from my side is because I'm from the Finnish Social Science Data Archive, that is the national service provider for SESTA, Eric, and SESTA is a member. So I mean, this is just an added layer of complexity, not on the service providing side, but I think on the governance side and the things that we need to take into account and think about when thinking of these structures. And we are not the only one. I mean, there are others in similar situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I mean, when I mentioned the actors that are engaged in the discussions, of course, I didn't spell out specifically research infrastructures or ESFRIs or ERICs, but they are all on board because as Mari said, I mean, we have different level of complexity, organizational, national, regional. Maybe there is also a regional dimension that we are not considering yet at the moment. And then the thematic one. So these are exactly the discussions that we are having in with this tripartite group. And I mean, many questions are on the table. Also from the Finnish perspective, in the context of the Finnish Forum and the coordinating committee, we have, for that specific reason, started having some meetings with the other Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, because we also want to understand their perspective, what are their initial reflections on all of this, because at a certain point, I mean, the governance will be called to take decision on, that's the structure of the federation, and this is the financial flow attached, and this is the governance. But then we need to make sure that the impact of that is positive on what we are doing, and for especially for researchers in Europe. So that's why every single voice is really important in all of this. Yeah, very good point, Mari. Any other comments or addition to this? Oh no, I raise my hand by mistake. Okay, I don't see any other hand raised, but then I think that we reached probably the first break. So I suggest we break for 10 minutes. So we reconvene at 10 o'clock Central European time. And then we start with the second part of the workshop that will be focusing on services for the implementation of the EOSC vision. So let's reconvene in 10 minutes. Thanks, Rita, for starting the recording. I hope you managed to have a quick coffee or cup of tea. As I mentioned before the break, so we start with the part 2 of the webinar that is really focused on services for the implementation of the EOSC vision. We start with two presentations, and the first one is about renewing services for research data management from my colleague Jessica Parland-Bonessen. As Jessica has to leave immediately after her presentation, I also would like to invite you that if you have specific question for Jessica, just we take a couple of questions after her presentation. But in any case, we have other colleagues online that can also answer later on. Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'm really sorry about this. I had this unfortunate clash in my calendar, but really happy to be here and happy to see so many people here. Now it seems I can't share my screen. I was thinking I should try sharing my screen before, but can somebody make me a co-host? But I'm in with the co-hosts. It's weird. Okay, let's.
It's working now.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about this.
Perfect. We see that perfectly.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. So, well, as you've heard now, there's very much going on in the EOSC, and also on national level, we have a lot of things going on. So we're like, in my opinion, in a quite big like transformation period now. We have many opportunities, and things can be moving quite fast, I hope, regarding service development. So I'm now going to approach this from most likely from a service provider and service development perspective. And as Sarah already talked or mentioned earlier, there's the new EU reference node concept that now is being developed, and this is really interesting for us to follow. And also within this node we will see lots of like guidelines and solutions, I think, and how to approach interoperability and how to connect, and also policy stuff. So, and then there will also, currently there is of course this catalog idea where services could be like presented. So this is really an interesting development, and I think we should follow it and follow also all kind of documentation that comes up regarding interoperability and stuff, because this gives us ways to think about how to ensure that we are really interoperable and offer the opportunities for our researchers to collaborate on the EU level. And this, I think, one important pathway is, or besides the like research organizations, also the research infrastructures, especially the big research infrastructures, have this kind of double way to approach and see. We have the like national interoperability field and domain, and then the domain specific international collaborations. So there's a lot to follow up on and keep on track. So we have some quite interesting documents regarding the architecture and which kinds of solutions are going to be used. And I think here also it's interesting to see and discuss like which are the kind of solutions we maybe want to share, want to use, or want to federate with, or be interoperable with, and which do we want to use, but like have a double own national version, and which one can we really do and build together with European infrastructure projects. And I think this EOSC gives a nice roadmap to the like interoperability part and side of this. So this I recommend if you are planning infrastructures or like theory applications or whatever in your organization and you're joining. And also, as you know, in this theory application round already, there were some questions about the EOSC, like how the theory is related to EOSC or how it will be compatible. So it's a good thing to take a look at this, what's happening there. So the EOSC in practice has, of course, been done and built and promoted through a lot of different projects, of which this is Fair Impact. And I was thinking now I would talk a bit about Fair Core for EOSC, because here we have some quite interesting services for interoperability, which are of exactly the kind maybe we could think of that do we need, how do we want our national service landscape to link to the European one, which are the ways we want to use these EOSC models and formats and guidelines and solutions and how those services. So yeah, I also wanted to raise maybe this report from the EOSC Winter School this spring, where there was like 6 fields of or areas of opportunity, and I think this is a nice list of where we see interesting development that should be like these are sort of key areas where development is happening, and it's useful to follow what's happening. And if you look at the middle section here, you can see, or those who have been more involved in EOSC can see that Finland is very active in most of these. Fair Core for EOSC is coordinated at CSC. Fair Impact is, we are participating in Fair Impact and Aqua Infra, Skills for EOSC and so on. So and the National Library, and we also of course have other partners, Tampere University and I think it's in Skills for EOSC and so on. So it's really we are in a good place in Finland and to follow these developments. And while these projects are going towards their end now next summer, it will be like interesting and maybe time to take some decisions also on how we want to proceed. So the Fair Core for EOSC projects is focused on these kinds of core services that would help integration and interoperability and discovery within the EU or the EOSC services. And I think these are interesting, and we should think about what we want to do with these. So the first, there are actually 2 graph services that are developed here. The one is the research discovery graph, and it's to help like discovery. So in the research graph, we are collecting all kinds of metadata and linking PIDs and so forth. Then we also have the PID graph service. In these 2 services, Finland hasn't been that active, but they are relevant as we are developing also our own graphs. So and it's important for us to be able to link to these European graphs. Then the third service on this slide is the metadata schema and crosswalk registry. And this service is actually developed at CSC. And this is a really interesting key service that we could really use nationally. And also, as I mentioned, these European infrastructures in this context for domain-specific integration or across domains, but also within domains we have we have interoperability issues and need to bridge and convert and conform, like harmonize the metadata. So this is really an important, I think, an interesting component that we should be looking at during this coming year and think about how we could use it and how could it maybe be then moved into real production as a production service. Then there is a data type registry, which is supporting, and it's linked to both the graph services and the PID services. And this is also an important tool for supporting data interoperability. So this is something we can be looking at. Then we have the EOSC PID meta resolver, which is also useful and helpful in this portfolio of services. And here the National Library has been also involved. So now we can really resolve different kinds of PIDs. And then there's the EOSC compliance assessment toolkit, which currently is working on the PID policies to help negotiate and discuss and assess how PIDs are assessed and PID are like PID policies. And there are, of course, many things that are related to policy and qualitative, like as evaluation. So it's an interesting challenge, but that's linked also to the Fair Impact project closely. Then we have the RAID, the Research Activity and Identifier Service, which is coming. There's a great need for it in our national research hub, research information hub, the research.fi. They will need this to link different aspects or PIDs of research projects. So this is currently it's developed at SURF in the Netherlands. So this is something also I think we need to think about if it's an important part of our own research information infrastructure. So we need to make really good contracts and agreements on the service. And then there are software for services for research software, and also the archive or preservation services for this. So this is very much upcoming, I think, and something we should discuss, like for the reproducibility of research, how to manage these research software questions. So when we are talking about data services, we also, of course, have very different types of services, and this we need to address, I think, even more about during the life cycle. What actually are we talking about storing? Are we talking about sharing, publishing? And then, of course, the digital preservation, which is a very separate thing. And for this, I think we have quite good services in our national service portfolio, Fair Data. So we will really have a good like branch or of EOSC here already in Finland. It's working, and we have a good interoperability and possibilities to integrate and federate with anything we want almost. So it's this is a good way if people want to start using EOSC and Fair Data services are a good way to start. But I wanted to make a few comments here in the end regarding planning the whole architecture and how to do this. We have been doing enterprise architecture in Finland. It's traditionally very known method to approach this planning thing, and we have already done a reference architecture for open science and research, which can really be helpful for us when we are planning this. So you've probably heard of it. If you haven't, please look it up on the web. And it's a quite extensive document, so I would like to ask you to please be in touch with me if you have any questions. We can together see and look if there are parts of this which can be helpful for your own planning and how you want to promote open science and support your researchers in this through your services. There has gone an immense work of expertise into this work, so it's really good if it can be taken into use. So many things have been thought about and solved and described already in this document. So there are solutions available. There's also a service map where the whole set of services needed to build open science is described. And now further, we are now working with the research reference architecture for research data management, DAHA. And I also hope you can follow this work if you have the possibility. The idea is really to make the digital transformation for research. So to really integrate all metadata and reuse the data and in a user research-centered way to approach then do this planning. And there's still, I think, a webinar coming, and they will be commenting during the summer. And also this, I can answer questions if you have any questions. But in this is a very draft picture of the kinds of stuff that we have information about during the research process. And if we could get all this data shared and flowing, that would be really helpful for the researchers. So, and I think Johanna's presentation will be more concrete regarding this. So thank you on my behalf.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We also got lots of information from your side. So again, I think that I would encourage everyone then to go back to your presentation, because you presented lots of recent developments, lots of new services. So I can imagine that, I mean, in 15 minutes, we cannot go into that much detail. I just would like to ask the audience if there are any specific questions for Jessica, because she has to leave. So is there any burning question that you want to ask now? I don't see any hand raised. So in any case, we have Johanna and Josephine in the webinar that can take questions on those topics as well. So we can also go to that later on. So then, thank you very much, Jessica, for this presentation. And I suggest that then we move to another very interesting topic that is high on the agenda of EOSC, which is machine actionable data management plans. And I would like to pass the floor to my colleague, Johanna Laiho-Kaurane. Johanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jessica, as well for the previous talk. Unfortunately, I can't at the moment share the slides. If the host can.
So then I guess
Yes.
we need to provide the co-host rights to Johanna.
Should be working now.
Yes, great. Thank you. And I hope the slides are going through. Great,
We
brilliant.
can see your slides.
Brilliant. So it's really a pleasure to participate to this roadshow event and tell about the recently started OS Trails project. which promotes open science in a large European vision. And we are promoting the EOSC web of their data and services and the vision to implement these in large scale. My role in CSC is that I'm working as a data governance lead, and in this Open Science Trails project, I'm leading the national pilot. And with pilots, I will explain you the structure a bit. We have many participants in this project. It's coordinated by Open Air, and there are altogether 38 organizations participating from 17 EU countries. And the purpose of having this wide participation is to ensure that we are gathering a lot of existing knowledge from our operations, but also through our networks, and then gathering this all together and working towards architecture that would then support the development of tools for concrete implementation. And then we are evaluating in the organizations and in the pilots what has been developed, and then feeding back so that in the end we are actually having practical tools to promote the open science and fairness. So we have in the project, in order to promote this practicality, 15 national pilots, and Finland is one of the countries where we are running the national pilots. And this is, I think, an excellent opportunity for Finland to promote fair practices, and we are working in our pilot to develop a machine actionable DMP template. And we are able to then benchmark with the other countries on the needs, on any identified hinders together, but also take into account the national circumstances, and then link this with the EU Horizon Europe pilot. And with scientific thematic pilots, and there are 9 of them. So I think we have a 3-year time span, we have enough time to have an interactive development project that will be holistic enough, but we have as well specific targeted focus areas. So the idea is to support planning of research projects, increase the efficacy of the data management plans in this, then as well provide tools for tracking the open interoperable scientific tracking of the projects, and then provide tools for assessment of research and develop a fair matrix and fair tests. And the project in the nutshell is in this picture, and I think you can see familiar projects referred here, and this means that we have linkages in the OS Trails project to these ongoing projects, and we are building on top of the knowledge created in them. So we are not doing something from scratch. We are really connected widely to the EOSC project. And in the national pilots of Finland, we are focusing into this area, this orange box, on developing the machine actionable data management plan templates. And we are linking with vocabularies, with permanent ideas, taking into account the importance of versioning, and so that we would have practical tools for the choice of the researcher to use for managing the whole research data lifecycle. So the idea is not only to support the initial planning, where the data management plans traditionally are used, so research are doing them if the funders are requesting them to do, but the idea is to develop the machine actionable data management plans so that they would be really thought as giving a good tools for the researchers to manage their projects more efficiently, to manage their data, and then promote the further use of the data. So even in that way, to promote the FAIR principles. So what do we then mean with the machine actionable data management plans? The idea is to provide researchers intelligent tool in which the researcher or the research group would bring in with their IDs, ORCIDs, also information that is already existing in other systems, so that they wouldn't need to code or write again or fill in templates again of any existing information that is already there, that is relevant for the research. And as well, the research organizations, RORs, could be used, and any other ideas connected, for example, for the infrastructure services and so. So then all this data is gathered into the DMP, and when there would be any updates or so then this information would be flowing from organization to another in a restricted manner. So with the machine actionability, with the API interfaces, we can link the data management plan to the research organization's own systems, or to the funding organization systems, or to national infrastructure services like the one CSC is providing. And when there would be any updates, then these updates would be as well be triggered from the data management plan to these other systems. So that would automate the management and reporting to some extent. Also, the machine actionable DMPs can have some triggers for helping the researcher to recognize that they need to do some actions. For example, if there are sensitive information or personal information involved in the research data, then the machine actionable DMP would assist the researcher for the proper management of this data, but would as well give the organization information that we have research projects where we have the need for protecting sensitive data or personal data. And so we can think that the machine actionable DMPs, they are promoting the good flow of information, but also a dialogue back and forth, so that the researchers are really receiving the assistance that they need. And also if they are maintained, so then the research group, if there are new members joining in, they would as well get hold of the track record of the managing the data, and also where the data exists. So we can see that there are benefits for both the researchers themselves, for the research groups, but then also for the research performing organizations and for the funding organizations. They can better make impact assessments, and and then that would hopefully as well help them in order to assure that the research funding that they are providing is well used. And then all repositories and research ecosystem service providers can as well utilize this information in order to better plan their resourcing of their services, so that the research groups will receive this in good time and at the time when they are needing it. So the objectives of the Open Science Trails project, they are widely promoting fairness. And in this pilot in Finland, we are very much aligned, but we are recognizing that the work of the machine actionable DMPs will be huge, and also so that we are able to develop a template that is working towards all stakeholders' needs and in protected way as well. So we are focusing on the machine actionable DMPs, but we are as well following what is happening with the science knowledge graphs and with the FAIR matrix and with the web of FAIR in the end in order to promote awareness as well as we are working together in the Finnish pilot. The Finnish pilot is open for anyone in the Finnish Academia to participate to our webinars, to our workshops. So that is as well kind of open by design, the whole pilot, as we want to promote the usage of the DMPs in the whole Finnish Academia research ecosystem. Also for those researchers who don't need to do it by their funding decision. There are research projects that are funded by the organizations themselves, but they would benefit of better management of their research data. So in that way, we are targeting to promote good methods of managing data and good tooling for this. So that's our goal is the diamond in this project is that the work would be useful and helping 60 research institutions in Finland involving the Finnish academia research organizations, the Research Council of Finland and other funders, but also the members of the National DMP Consortium and the DMP Tooling Office. They are part of this project and we are very much welcoming others to join as well. And then the Finland's National Open Science Coordination. And we have selected few use cases where we are working forward. And these are as well pretty much encouraged by the Open Science Trails project. So there are other national pilots working similarly as well towards the machine actionable DMPs, and we can share a lot of knowledge amongst us. This 3-year time span will be hopefully enough. I have seen that during this initial design stage where we are at the moment, the project started in February, and by September we have already gained a lot of information together. So, and that is really instrumental that we can then feed this to the tool developers as well who are participating in this project. So the way of working is really using the co-development, the co-creation, testing together, and we are not solely decided to work on any specific tool. We are, of course, promoting the development of the tool we are currently using, but also looking what's kind of good technicalities and good solutions there are at the moment in other tools, and what could be then co-created together to the next generation of tooling, and then see how this is being developed. There is as well at the moment just recently signed Salzburg agreements on all the tool providers, or most of them, to work together to promote machine actionability, as we all understand that it will really help the research organizations to become more efficient. And as well for the researchers themselves to be better recognized by the scientific community when their work is being found, and also when their data is better managed so that it can be reused, and also with the principles of open science. We have already worked on in our first workshop on the 10 machine actionable DMP principles. What does it mean for us here in Finland? And also what needs to be achieved in order that we are achieving the principles. They are still pretty much theoretical targets for us. And And this work has continued. In May, we hold a workshop where we were then studying together the RDA machine actionable DMP standard and looking in what elements there are, what there should be as well. And we were able to detect that there could be more emphasis on some issues, and also assessing the data model itself, what is there at the moment in text format and what should be more structural in order that we would have higher gains and higher efficiencies of the machine actionability. So we are pretty much utilizing the common blueprints of our area, but developing them as well further, and then feeding in feedback and making suggestions for the standards to be developed. The work continues. We will have on the 6th of June the next workshop, and I'm really welcoming you all to participate to this. So the workshops last for 2 hours. They are online, so it is easy to participate. And then in September, we will have a 1-day workshop at the CSC premises in Keilaniemi, organizing it in a hybrid way. If there are people from other parts of Finland, it's a large country that can't participate on the premises, so we will then host hybrid sessions as well. I really hope that everyone is able to participate and bring in your hesitations and bring in your concerns, so then we can take them on board and work together to achieve the goals of the EOSC and fair open science. Thank you, and I would really like to thank the organizers, and if there are any questions.
Thank you, Johanna, for the very clear presentation. Are there any questions for Johanna, or maybe also on the previous presentation? I don't see any hand raised, but then I would suggest the following. So we have prepared a Mentimeter to have a bit of an interactive session and also to collect some views from the audience. So I pass the floor to my colleagues Pina and Josephine that will moderate the Mentimeter part.
Thank you, Sarah. So now it is time to activate the audience a little bit through Mentimeter. You can access Menti either by using your computer or your mobile phone. The address is here, so menti.com, and then the code is 7732566. Or if you prefer, you can use your mobile phone and take a picture of the QR code, and then that should allow you to access the Menti. And my colleague Josephine will post also the link, the direct link to Menti, to the chat.
Yeah, it's in the chat now. So if you want to use the direct link, please just click on the link in the chat and let us know if you have difficulties in getting in for some reason.
I'll wait for a little while and then we'll start.
Yeah, and this is also the same Menti that we're gonna use later on, right?
Yes, exactly.
So please connect now, because you can use it also for the next session.
Okay, now we'll move forward, but if you haven't accessed the Menti just yet, you will see the code on the slides as well, so no worries.
Okay, so these questions, they relate more or less to the 2 presentations that you just heard, presented by Jessica and Johanna. So the first question would be, which data services meant for researchers are the most crucial or important in your opinion, and why? And you can be as concrete as you like. So the more concrete, I guess, the better. So we get an idea of the reasoning behind why a certain service would be more crucial than another one. And you are also allowed to write several entries if you like. Yes, so I already like the inputs that are coming in, so they relate to easy access, so making it really easy for the researchers to access, to find the data, but also to cite the data. Of course, the data repositories allowing you to store your data and related metadata are important. And yes, there have recently been quite a lot of talk about the trustworthiness of repositories that allow a longer term storage as well for the research data. And if applicable, a domain-specific repository is good to use. And yes, a tool also allowing for planning the research data lifecycle is a good one as well, and some concrete tools and suggestions as well. So data management plans and RAID, so the research activity identifiers for research projects. And obviously there are different kinds of the data. So for the more sensitive data, we need to have opportunity for anonymization as well. And related secure storage for also that type of a data. I really like that these inputs are really diverse and capture the full picture. So I guess there is no single service that is the most crucial one. It depends on the scientific discipline at hand and also the type of data you're working with. So really good inputs. I think we can take the next question now. So this relates mostly to the DAHA that Jessica presented. So the reference architecture for research data management. And there is a sort of a short explanation that they have defined this target state for Finland for the DAHA reference architecture project. And so this question is more or less based on this vision. So if you could rank the following statements in terms of user centricity should provide. So the one being the most crucial and the four the least. So this is not an easy question and also requires some time for really reading and considering the importance of these four statements. And I guess all of them are important in some way, but it seems to be so far that the frictionless transitions between services is the most crucial one, having the metadata and data follow you along between these services that are being used. And the next one also related to a frictionless process, making it easy to choose or use a service that is ultimately the best option for their research. And this is based on the nudge principle. And thirdly, added value throughout the research process. I mean, this is of course important, but not as concrete as the two previously mentioned. And the third one is that it creates easy collaboration opportunities. So we can take the next question, I believe, at this point. So this is also a ranking exercise with 5 statements, and this relates to the principle of as open as possible and as restricted as necessary. So what does this principle really mostly require? So again, from most important to least. Now we see some results coming in. This is also understandably a bit more time-consuming exercise to read through 5 statements, but let's give it some more time. So far, managing rights, access, and licenses is clear, coherent, and simple. Gets the most votes, so to say. Then moving to organizational and legal interoperability are being catered for. Then we have a tie in terms of the 3rd and the 4th. Services are interoperable in terms of rights and access management. And then we have one on interoperable metadata is being generated, captured, and shared. And the last one, it relates to data management planning, that it's being shared with as many services as possible. Is not seen to be as crucial as the aforementioned. Thank you. So the last question of this set of Mentimeter is related to impactful and responsible research and how this is achieved. So this is on a scale from strongly disagree on the left-hand side to strongly agree on the right-hand side. So please try and determine the relevance of these 3 statements here. Okay, so far we have most votes for the first one on clear, fair, and efficient governance in the development of the service offering. So as you notice, these questions are more so related to the service management or infrastructure management side rather than the research practice specific. So interesting to see, and also interesting input for the aforementioned DAHA architecture work. We seem to have a tie on efforts to enhance organizational interoperability and efforts to enhance legal interoperability. So both are perceived as important in this respect. Okay, I think we have spent our time and a bit more, so I suggest we end this Mentimeter for now, and now we have a break.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Josephine. And maybe a question, are you planning to make available also the results of the Mentimeter for the audience? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yes. Yeah, we will send them afterwards. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, then thanks a lot for your active participation. As Josephine mentioned, we are gonna have a break. My suggestion is that we take a 10 minutes break. So we start again at 11, especially, I hope Mari, you are the next speaker, is okay with you, so that we take 10 minutes and we start 5 minutes after compared to the agenda. So let's have a 10 minutes break. We reconvene at 11 Central European time, okay? Welcome back to the webinar. So we are approaching the last part of this webinar. And in this session, we have two speakers. I'm going to introduce the first speaker, that is Mari Klemola from the Finnish Social Science Data Archive and University of Tampere. Mari, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm assuming you see my screen.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, my title today is Fair in Practice. So I'm going to try to be approach these things from a very practical viewpoint. So my name is Mari Klemola. As Sarah mentioned, I'm from FSD, that is an institute within Tampere University. FSD is also the Finnish national service provider for the SESTA ERIC. I've worked in FSD for 25 years. This is actually our 25th anniversary year this year. I'm currently development manager, and I've worked with EU projects and EOSC initiatives. I was, for example, a member of the EOSC Association Task Force on FAIR. I'm a co-trustee board member, and of course, a FAIR Impact Project champion. And I'm really happy to be invited here today. And I'm also been very happy to be the FAIR Impact champion, because it has allowed me to follow the project, and I'm really impressed by the wide variety of actions that the project has been taking. It's also, I think, describes very well how much work is needed to really to make the vision of FAIR ecosystem reality. Today, my FAIR story, I will talk a little bit about the FSD, then the FAIR principles, and especially on how there's a movement nowadays to try to get from assessment into assistance. I will throw a lot on the experiences in the EOS Nordic project that we had. I will give examples on FSD and FAIR. I will also say a few words about FAIR enough. And my pet peeve, FAIR and over time. And then hopefully there will be a couple of minutes time where I can reflect on some of the previous presentations that have been really interesting and given a lot of food for thought. As I mentioned, I'm from FSD. Many of you already know it, but I just want to say that we are co-trustee certified trustworthy repository with the mission for long-term preservation of social science research data. Our users come from different disciplines, so that they are not restricted to social sciences. We see a growing number of users from other disciplines, and I think that's great. We are well established in the national landscape. We have about 6,000 registered users that can download data from our ILA portal it's click and you get the data. We have about 2,000 data sets there. And yeah, we also collect information on publications based on the data that has been archived. And there's more than 6,000 publications there. So we are a well established social science data archive, and we have a very active user community. Our main users are, so our main target users are researchers, but the number of, most of the users are actually students, so the number of users there is higher than, for example, for researchers. In addition to data, we have several other services, guidance, information services, and so on. So just go and look at our website. We are the national service provider for the consortium of European social science data archives. And you can see it's almost all European countries are members. And this is our main way to EOSC as well, because CESTA is a member of the EOSC Association. FAIR principles, so I'm sure you know FAIR principles. There's a lot of literature and resources available about FAIR. I'm not going to go into details there. I'm just saying that the landscape, it's the information is there. It's there's an abundance of information. The thing that also has been brought up by previous presenters is that actually the whole research process should be fair. It's not something that is separate from the process. And yeah, data management, it always starts from the plan, maybe even a little bit before the researchers write the plan, but still it's there in early stages. And this planning makes FAIR really possible. We want to collect metadata as possible, as automatically as possible. For example, the metadata should flow between services, for example. Identifiers need to be there automatically, hopefully, and so on. So, and any barriers need to be taken into account. And so we sort of have to make the data and other digital objects fair from the beginning and not do verifying after the fact, which is, I think, still the case in many disciplines, and certainly, I think, also in social sciences. But the goal is to sort of get to the beginning when it comes to FAIR. Jumping to a different topic, so the assessment. So assessment have been really a hot topic, I think, especially for repositories, maybe also to researchers. And we've seen, because of FAIR principles, they are not metrics as such, but there have been several attempts and good attempts to actually create metrics based on the principles. And also, I think FAIR has unified communities. So FAIR has been endorsed across disciplines. We do have a common vision of this FAIR ecosystem. But I mean, FAIR Assist org currently lists, I think, 28 tools. So there's a huge number of tools. There's a certain lack of common understanding what the metrics should be. And of course, there are different disciplines have different practices. And of course, those different practices should be accounted for when assessing. Most tools, or at least the most used or most known tools, tend to give a numerical scores, but how to interpret them, it's not straightforward. It requires knowledge. It requires a narrative. I would strongly advise against binary judgments. So there's always a narrative behind the number. What we have seen, for example, in the EOSC Nordic project, is that if you can provide good guidance to repositories and repository managers, you can achieve a good uptake of FAIR practices, of FAIR metadata. Johanna already told you about the OS Trails project. There's also this goal to transit from these pass-fail tests towards more assistance, so that the results can be improved based on good feedback from the testing tools. And also, I think sort of human assistance is needed as well, so guidance and somebody to talk to and ask questions. So I just wanted to bring up this example from the EOS Nordic project. The project ended already, well, 1.5 years ago, but many of the learnings and the outputs are still very valid. So we did assessments of Nordic repositories. We had a sample of about 100 repositories, and we created a mechanism to assess them for fairness, or actually the metadata records for fairness. And this is an example of 5 repositories that received personal support and guidance from the project, and really detailed information on how to improve their FAIR score, what they need to do with their metadata, how they need to present their metadata, what kind of additional metadata they will need to include in their data descriptions. And you can see we saw huge raise in their FAIR score. So this it was a direct impact of this guidance and assistance that we were able to provide during the project. There's a link to the report if you want to see the details. But this is a clear indication that guidance assistance is really important, and it's needed, especially now that we are moving forward to a fairer ecosystem, and that's a shared goal. I also want to talk a little bit about our experiences with FAIR and assessing how fair our metadata is. As said, we have about 2,000 studies in our data catalog, all described using the data documentation initiative that is the de facto standard for social sciences. And I have several slides here. I'm not going to go into detail about each FAIR component, but I've explained here how we do things, and we do publish very good metadata online. We have persistent identifiers. Our data can be found in several catalogs. Both metadata and data are available. Data only to registered users. So actually the testing tools usually don't recognize that. But anyway, we support Haka Identity Federation and so on. When it comes to interoperability, as I mentioned, we use DDI codebook, we use controlled vocabularies, classifications, we provide citations and links, yeah. So it's a huge amount of metadata, both in Finnish and in English. That said, I think we have some work to do in the interoperability aspects. And part of that is because, well, we were founded 25 years ago, and then our main users were humans, so researchers, and our metadata, many of our metadata practices, although we have improved over the years, but they are still targeted. Our metadata is mostly targeted to human users because that's the main use case, or has been the main use case, because we do see a growing number of machine users that we need to take into account. And when it comes to reusability, we do think that we have this metadata there to enable reusability and maintaining the understandability of the digital object, the data sets in the future also. There are some things that we have done over the years. For example, on the left, you can see the human readable data documentation on our website and on the ILA service catalog. Then you can see the DDI, its XML file. And then we have added it, actually in the last 5 years, a lot of this JSON LD metadata into the landing page of the digital object, so that these machines can access the metadata more easily and understand it. But still, even though we have what I think are really good metadata practices and good documentation, and we follow the standard social science practices, if you go to the Fuji assessment tool and take one of our metadatas, and yeah, assess it. We get a score of 50. This is not something that we like to see. So we would like to have a higher score, but this is also, you know, it's also the question of what is measured and what is the tool measuring, what are the metrics behind it. Over the years, our highest score has been 77%. So something has changed, and most probably it's been the tool or the metrics. Our metadata has improved actually, so you would expect the score to get higher, but that shows how difficult it is to assess and interpret the results. If you go to FAIR Evaluator, we get a little bit higher score, around 65%, I think, but still, it's not as high as it could be, and there are several reasons. We've analyzed the reasons, and some of them are things that we don't agree with. So, for example, we used URNs as persistent identifiers, though those are not always recognized by the tools. We are working on DOIs now. And some other things that we think that we have, but it's just not recognized by the tools. And then, of course, there are also improvements we need to make. So what is fair enough is a question we get a lot. And I think that your user communities, the researchers' needs determine what should be your goals. And findability is typically easier than interoperability, for example. And regardless of FAIR, you should exercise good data management practices. FAIR is not one goal, it's a process. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about discipline-specific metadata, and I really want to stress the importance of that. If you think about the generic metadata schemes, you usually only have administrative or organizational information, which are absolutely necessary, but well, the researcher wants usually more. And you also have to think about the context. So a digital object, it can't really be made fair without thinking of the context. It's dependent on the ecosystem, on the repository, basically, where it lives. So think about that as well. This is also from EOS Nordic, and based on that, and that as I mentioned this a couple of years ago, a FAIR score of 50% or over could be said to be good, and you can see the average score of the Nordic sample, and it's not something like 25%. But this depends a lot on your use case, your community's needs, and also just remember that all these tests, tools, repositories, they have improved since 22, so things have changed. But still, as a rule of thumb, if you get 50, you are doing things already in a good way. I also want to mention FAIR plus over time. So there's a link to this report we did in the FAIR SOC and EOS Nordic projects. So usually FAIR principles don't take into account the changes to the data environment or the user's needs. So research data will not stay fair by magic. So that's why we need trustworthy DDL repositories in over time, and that is something that I see more and more in the discussions, but needs a little bit more emphasis also in the future. I think I have a minute or two, so I will use that for some reflections, because the things that have come up today is the huge speed of change. So the landscape is changing. It's been changing the last 10 years, but now we are really, getting somewhere, I think. And this is on several levels. So we have the local level, the maybe regional level, national level, European level, and how to position ourselves and our actions there, and what is the governance model. These will be interesting developments. I think we have great national things like the Open Science Reference Architecture mentioned by Jessica, and the OS Trails project. Johanna talked about the importance of DMPs, and as mentioned, the OS Trails will also address this FAIR assistance need. As a repository manager, one of my key questions is why should I adapt, or when should I adapt to these changes, requirements, the changing environment, and what is the right time, for example, to improve our metadata, and what are the why would I need to adapt all the time? Why don't the tools provide something that I can use? So these are just from the repository manager's viewpoint, I think very topical questions. And but as in all, I think perfection can be the enemy of good. So good enough is something we should strive to and then improve from there. Okay, I think that's my short presentation today, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mari, especially also for your personal reflections. And I want to comment further about what you just mentioned about when is the right time to do things. So if I think about now all these developments in the EOSC context, my suggestion is in that perspective, when things are more stabilized, right? I got the same question from Jessica this week when she was asking, oh, but do we need to start looking at the integration, for example, for the EOSC AAI? And my answer was, well, now, I mean, things are really moving fast. So in October, there will be something concrete to start, let's say, to play with or to interface with. So my suggestion would be, let's wait still after the summer. And then I think that's going to be the time to really start testing, piloting things and see what's best suitable for us. But that's, thank you very much, Mari, for that. I suggest we move to the next speaker, that is Janne Pölönen from the Federation of the Finnish Learned Societies, that will talk a bit about research assessment and the Koara movement. And Janne, for your information, we had a question this morning about what is relation between EOSC and Koara. And my answer to that was that so Koara is really the reference initiative when we talk about research assessment for what all concern policies, the development of new indicators and evaluation of the impact of this on the entire research system. And I said that EOSC is an enabler for open science, and open science includes also all these topics that are related to research assessment. So that was my answer. Maybe you have a different answer. And it would be interesting to hear that from you as well after your talk. I hand it over to you then.
Thank you, Sarah. And I want to thank also Fair Impact Finland Roadshow for inviting me to talk about research assessment agenda and especially Koara. So I start sharing my screen. I see host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Yeah, Rita will give you the co-host rights. You should have them now.
It should work now.
Okay. And do you see it okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Great. So, so my name is Janne Pölönen. I work at the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies, but I am also involved in Koara in different ways. I coordinate a working group on multilingualism and language biases in research assessment. I also contribute to the Koara National Chapter Finland. I will also talk about that a bit. And I'm also contributing to the Koara steering board since December. So I really like the previous Mari's presentation, and I think that it is more time consuming to produce fair data than unfair data, or let's say not data that is not so conforming to the fair principles. And responsible assessment practices should really reward the best practice. And that is part of the challenge. So here is the structure of my presentation. I will quickly introduce responsible research assessment agenda. Then I will tell more about Koara, the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment. And finally, I also tell you a bit about the KOARA National Chapter, Finland. So let's start with the responsible research assessment agenda. So I'm sure everyone is aware of an avalanche of different kind of responsible research assessment initiatives and recommendations. Yet another initiative starting with DORA, San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment in 2012. There are so many international initiatives that have contributed to the agenda. Recently, the Responsible Research Assessment, or RRA, has been defined as an umbrella term for approaches to assessment that incentivize, reflect, and reward plural characteristics of high-quality research and support diverse and inclusive research cultures. I think that quite nicely captures the diversity or the broadness of what we are aiming to do. And maybe some of the main objectives of the movement are balancing qualitative and quantitative methods in assessment, recognizing the diversity of academic work, including contributions. So there are so many more different types of research outputs than just journal articles. We have data sets, software, and so forth. Also, we need to appreciate disciplinary differences. Humanity is very different from computer science, for example. And we need to incentivize open science practices, the best practices, including fair data practices. So we have all these initiatives, and they have all contributed in many important ways to different aspects of the agenda. I just mentioned DORA. There is first the recommendation to abandon journal metrics as surrogate measure of quality, but DORA also pays attention to being transparent about the criteria of evaluation. It also pays attention to the data supporting evaluation. It should be open, transparent, and also there should be licenses allowing unrestricted reuse for the data used in support of assessment. And also we should recognize the diversity of outputs. And every new initiative has added this or that angle to the mix. But here is maybe one of the points that also the research information should be fair and open. And there is now Barcelona Declaration on open research information to promote this aspect. And this is perhaps also the angle how EOSC contributes to the big agenda. So now quite a change has come with the agreement on reforming research assessment. So a huge number of organizations have signed DORA, and DORA is a fantastic declaration, but there is perhaps some lack in commitment. And now the agreement for reforming research assessment tries to change that. So it was published in 2022. It has 10 overarching principles, 10 commitments, and clear time frame for reform. So every signatory organization, of which we have already over 700, is preparing an action plan. What will they do during the next 5 years to change and fulfill the commitments? And it's not a legally binding document, but really shows a common direction and commitment for contributions to reforming research assessment practices. And this is the core of KOARA agreement. So what are the commitments? So first, recognize the diversity of contributions to and careers in research accordance with the needs and nature of research. The second commitment, base research assessment primarily on qualitative evaluation, but this can be supported by responsible use of quantitative indicators. The third commitment supports the DORA Declaration's first recommendation, abandon inappropriate uses in research assessment of journal and publication-based metrics, especially journal impact factor and age index. And fourthly, avoid the use of university rankings in research assessment purposes. So using the ranking of university as a proxy of quality. And what is the context of research assessment as defined in QARA? So it deals with assessment of research performing organizations and units. It deals with the level of research projects, and of course also with the assessment of individual researchers and research teams for the purpose of allocating funding in all three cases, making prices and award decisions in case of projects and individuals. And then for each level, there are specific processes. For instance, in case of individual researchers, recruitment and hiring promotion decisions, or professional development reviews. So this is the broad context of research assessment where the QARA commitments are relevant. So let's then look at the QARA coalition itself. So the coalition is a community of signatories. And the coalition offers space for its members to learn from others' experiences. There are so many developments and challenges also in moving forward with the responsible research assessment practices that we really need to do this together. The QARA has a governance based on a General Assembly of Members and Steering Board, and there is a very effective secretariat run by the European Science Foundation. And the coalition members are invited to be involved in national chapters. I will talk a bit more about that in the end of my talk, and also in working groups. And there are also other type of coalition activities. So how we have come to this point. So the very beginning, or the process started in 2021 with the preparatory work for developing draft of the agreement. The agreement itself was published in July 22. In December, the QARA coalition was constituted, and now we are in May 24 with over 600 coalition members, over 700 agreement signatories. We have 13 working groups, 16 national chapters. We have already visible policy impact, for instance, in UK REF assessment system or European Research Council funding assessment processes. And we have also EU-funded QARA Boost project up and running to support QARA activities. So the QARA membership is the majority of organizations are universities and their associations, or research centers, infrastructures and their associations. But also included are academies, learned societies, public and private research funding organizations, non-profit organizations, and also national, regional evaluation agencies. If we look at QARA membership distribution by country, we can see that we have member organizations from almost 50 countries. The largest number come from Spain, but we have also a very strong representation from Nordic countries. Finland is their 5th country with 31 at the moment. And also Sweden and Norway is not far behind. And Denmark, 8 organizations already. Iceland with 2. And here is the global picture. So we can say at the moment that, of course, QARA had a European beginning. Commission played a very important role in making the first step. And then most of the signatories and members of the coalition currently come from European countries, but we already have signatory organizations and members also outside Europe, in North America, in Latin America, some in Africa, and also in Asia. But of course, the next step for upcoming years is a globalization strategy for Quora. And from agreement to action, I already mentioned quickly action plans. So quite many organizations that signed Quora agreement among the first comers. It is now about the time for them to start publishing and making visible public their action plans for reforming research assessment. And there is a Quora Zenodo group for sharing these action plans. And quite many Finnish organizations have already done that. And then a very exciting new development is from the Quora Boost project, there is also cascade funding available for member organizations and also possibly other organizations as well for catalyzing research assessment reform processes. So for further information, please go and look at the Quora website. There are different type of instruments. And Quora working groups are very important form of developing better practices in specific themes and topics and challenges of responsible assessment practices. So we have 13 working groups. Maybe one group that is very relevant for EOSC, for instance, is toward open infrastructures for responsible research assessment, which is coordinated by OpenAIR. And also there is an EU project called GRASP OS, in which CSC and also DSV are partners. And this project is also quite prominently represented in that working group. We also have 16 Quora national chapters, the purpose of which is to facilitate advancement of Quora commitments and responsible research assessment practices in national context, because very many structural issues, starting with funding and number of organizations and different type and orientation of organizations that do assessments, they are nationally specific. And that's why it's important to also have these national communities. And as I mentioned, Finland does have a national chapter. So I finally say a few words about the Quora national chapter Finland. So these, as I said, are really dedicated to assisting Quora members in implementing the commitments in national or regional context. They have been proposed at the initiative of Quora members, and participation is, of course, voluntary. All Quora signatories have been welcome to join the national chapters, but actually the national chapters can also include non-signatories as well. And that is one of the goals, actually, because to reach out to those organizations that have not yet signed the agreement happens best at the national level, where the national chapter stakeholders can understand the local landscape. So the national chapter of Finland was proposed by TSV on behalf of 29 organizations. TSV is currently coordinating the national chapter. And actually there is more updated information here on this slide on the number. So currently we have 41 member organizations in the national chapter, 13 universities, 19 universities of applied sciences, 5 state research institutes, also Research Council of Finland, Finnish Union of Docents, Young Academia of Finland, and others are still invited to join. So we can see from the picture on the right side that almost all universities are already members of the national chapter and also signatories of the agreement. Almost all universities of applied sciences are also involved, at least in the national chapter. and most of them are also signatories. And also, even if there is only one state research institute that so far has signed the agreement, we have already almost half of the state research institutes members of the national chapter. So that is very important for having the dialogue. And the mission, indeed, of the Finnish national chapter is to support the entire Finnish research community in its journey towards quality-focused assessment culture that recognizes the full diversity and impact of academic work. And the specific objectives are to raise awareness and discussion about the importance of assessment reform, engage all types of stakeholders, so not only universities, but also universities of applied science, of state research institutes, and also other type of institutions, not only the Finnish Research Council or Business Finland, but also the private foundations and other type of organizations as well, to become core signatories and advocates for the assessment reform. We also want to discover the most responsible assessment approaches and alleviate contradictions between different assessment layers and processes, and to facilitate the implementation on one hand of core commitments, but also supporting related other recommendations, international ones and also national ones. And here I come to the final slide of my presentation. Some of the national specifics of the Finnish chapter are that we already have in Finland a strong work to advance responsible assessment. We have several working groups already at national level that are working to improve things in different areas. So we have, for instance, steering group for responsible researcher assessment and a related working group. We have open science coordination working group for responsible assessment and incentives. We have FinArma research evaluation group that tackles more the institution level assessments. And we have also FinArma publication metrics group that is dealing with use of indicators and quantitative information. And of course, one of the centerpieces in Finland is also the national recommendation for the responsible evaluation of a researcher that was published in 2020. And now it's in kind of implementation phase. We know that quite many organizations have already built or let's say crafted or framed their own assessment policies, also pointing out to this recommendation in addition to the international recommendations. And we are developing Finnish career assessment matrix that would facilitate more, let's say, holistic recognition of academic work, including different type of outputs, competencies such as being data steward or so forth. And we are also planning national training on responsible assessment. So you can find more information on Quora on the website, Quora website, and also you can find more information about the Finnish national chapter. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janne, for this presentation. I've learned many new things. So I also would like to invite you to feel free to use also the EOSC Finnish Forum newsletter or mailing list to disseminate those developments, especially for the national chapters, because we were saying before with Mari, the landscape is evolving very fast. So it's would be really important that we can follow all the developments. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. So my suggestion is that we are prepared an interactive part for this session. So let's move to the interactive part. But then if you still have questions either for Mari or Janne, raise your hand and we can take them as well. Josephine and Pina, please take over.
Okay, great. So it is the same Menti that we used before. If you have it open, don't worry, you don't have to do anything. But if you are not connected to it anymore, There is the information for it. So menti.com and 773-2566 is the code. Okay, we'll move on.
Yes, so this is the second and the last Mentimeter session that we will have. So this relates directly to Mari's presentation. And as you heard, there are as many as 28 assessment tools listed in the Fair Assist tool. So there are quite many out there. So the question is whether you have used the Fair Assessment tool and which one or which ones have you used. And as also Mari pointed out, they assess fairness in different ways. So Fuji is one of those. That is a fair assessment tool that originates from the former Fair project. And Fair Evaluator as well. And others haven't yet used Fair Assessment tool. I don't know if someone wants to comment on these tools being mentioned or otherwise, then that is possible now, either in the chat or in the Mentimeter or by speaking up.
Maybe, I mean, this is just a short and not representative. We are a selected number of people here. We did the task force did a fair survey where we had about 80 responses, and I think Fuji was the most used tool by those respondents. So I think there's a certain, Fuji seems to be the most used tool at the moment. So if you are planning to try one, maybe that's the one to go at the moment. But things are changing.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mari. And Janne has his hand raised.
Just a quick follow-up question. I'm not expert in these tools, so I would like to ask why Fuji seems to be the most used tool.
I think there are several reasons, and maybe Josephine can jump in also. But it was created in the Fair project, and it's further developed in Fair Impact. Also, based on the experiences we had in EOS Nordic, it was easier to use. But I mean, Fair Evaluator, it's been maintained and developed as well. So I think we will see that the landscape is changing in this regard. But if you want to use Fuji, you just, it's quite straightforward to test one record.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think we can have the next question. So that relates directly to Janne's presentation. Has your organization signed Koara? Okay, so far 5 have and 1 haven't, but that's pretty good statistics so far. 6 even have signed Koara agreement. Okay, 7 have. So that's good. And I think we can go to the follow-up question. So that is, what would be the reasons to sign or not to sign the Koara agreement? that might be a quite tricky question for you to answer without being prepared. Maybe also Janne wants to chip in and try to convince people of why it's worth joining.
Yeah, I can try. Of course, the goals of the responsible research assessment movement. So I'm sure they are quite aligned with the values and strategies of Finnish research organizations. And that explains why so many Finnish organizations have already signed the agreement and joined QARA. And of course, there is also maybe the thinking that we need to do it together. Not only in Finland, but also internationally. And we are part of the because researchers move, funding moves, everything flows also not only in Finland, but internationally. And the international practices have to be, the national and international practices should be aligned, more or less. So
yes, exactly. So that is also one of the replies here, that to join the global level reform of assessment. Also that, QARA brings some added quality maybe to the way of thinking. If the university does not do that necessarily, and that the academia can be very conservative. Yes, so this QARA agreement, I guess, brings the sort of added value, or like a concrete examples of how change can be achieved, really.
If I may comment, of course, it's also a consideration that as a member or signatory and member of QARA, you can actually affect and influence the movement. So that is one reason also to be involved as a signatory. And certainly there is the aspect of being or part of the academia being conservative, and that's true. There is the old model where very narrow assessment criteria have been used, for instance, for researchers. Mainly what counts is the peer-reviewed journal articles in international journals. And it has been beneficial for some part of the academia for a long time. And it may be a bit scary to think other possible approaches to assessment.
Thank you for those comments, Janne. So it's really good to hear some background information from an expert within this field. Also hearing that you are able to influence to a somewhat degree also in which direction this takes. It's really good to hear. I think we will end this here and move forward with the program. So over to you, Sara, again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the interactive part and the participation. I think we reached the end of the webinar. So before handing over to Sara Pitonet, I would like to thank on behalf of the EOSC Association, but also the EOSC Finnish Forum, all the speakers, the participants, and the Fair Impact Project for creating this excellent opportunity for us to share our experience on services, fair practices, the research assessment at the EU level, but also to reflect how this will impact the national context. So thank you very much from my side. Sara, I hand it over to you for closing the webinar. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Sara, as well, for chairing this session on behalf of CSC, and thanks to all the participants. Yes, I'm just wrapping up, reminding you a few upcoming opportunities. So as we mentioned at the beginning, there is an open call for cascading grants dedicated to, for support dedicated to repository and data services, which is closing on the 14th of June. So we invite you to join the virtual clinic webinar on the 5th of June to get more information. A new call for cascading grants will open in September, so stay tuned. As we mentioned, on the 13th of June, the FAIR implementation workshop series will be dedicated to repositories dealing with biodiversity data. So again, this is open for everybody to register. We mentioned the catalog before, so these assets below many resources are listed to support you in the FAIR implementation journey, but you can also contribute by suggesting us new resources to add. So please think about, since we will be very happy to have more in the catalog and distribute it across the FAIR Impact and Broad EOSC channels. There is a simple form to complete. And last but not least, the second report of the synchronization workshop is out, available for reading. And I can also anticipate that the third and last series of the synchronization force workshops is taking place in autumn this year. We will kickstart on the 3rd of September until the 7th of November. There will be 8 online sessions during this period. So again, if you're interested and you're not already in the invitee list, and if you think your institute would contribute to these discussions, please contact us. And that's it. We have a newsletter, so if you want a live way to be informed about what's happening, feel free to stay tuned. With that, I conclude, and I wish you all the very best for the rest of the days. All the materials will be put online, as well as the recordings, and we hope to see you soon with us for any upcoming events. Thank you all, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.